Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Inshallah, all of you are having a good Jummah. Today, we'll be continuing from the 25th word, and we have been talking about the eloquence of the Quran. This specific section of the text, we are talking about 10 different types of eloquence. I think this is the 9th one. So inshallah, the author is sharing certain verses with us and explaining and offering an explanation of them as well, with attention to specifically how they convey what they convey. So inshallah, I'll begin by reading the text, and hopefully we'll just go from there. And of course, you can chime in with your comments and questions at any point, hopefully. All right, so Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. He begins with this verse: Praise be to God, creator of the heavens and the earth, who made the angels messengers with wings, 2, 3, or 4 pairs. He adds to creation as he pleases, for God is powerful over all things. And this is from chapter 35, Surah Fatir, the first verse. So this is how the chapter begins. In this surah, the Quran says, by adorning the heavens and the earth in this way, and displaying the works of his perfection, their all-glorious creator causes innumerable spectators to extol and praise him. He decks them out with incountable bounties, so that the heavens and the earth praise and extol unendingly the most merciful creator through the tongues of all the bounties and those who receive them. After this, it points out that since the creator has given men and the animals and birds members and wings with which to travel through the towns and lands of the earth, and since that all-glorious one has also given wings to the angels, the inhabitants of the realm of the heavens, in order to fly through the celestial palaces of the stars and lofty lands of the constellations, he is certainly powerful over all things. The one who gives wings to a fly, to fly from fruit to fruit, and wings to a sparrow to fly from tree to tree, is the one who gives wings to the angels to fly from Venus to Jupiter. Furthermore, the angels are not restricted to particularity like the dwellers of the earth. They are not confined by a specific place. With the words 2, 3, or 4 pairs, as is said in the verse, it suggests that at one time they may be present on 4 or more stars. It gives details. The verse gives details. Thus, through describing the arraying of the angels with wings, which is a particular event, it points to a universal, general workshop of divine power and its immensity, and verifies and establishes it with the summary, for God is powerful over all things. So to be honest, when I read this verse and this paragraph right after, I felt that the paragraph made the verse even more convoluted for me, or in some ways more difficult to understand than it already is in some ways. But I guess one thing that I'll say is that, in the discussion last week as well, we saw this in this part of the text so far. Nursi seems to be kind of talking about how there is a universal aspect and message that is embedded in the description of something very particular that happens on in the verse, right? So last week, we had looked at, the ascension of the prophet, or about the verse where some woman complains about her husband, right? Things that seem very particular to certain individuals or to certain times, but from that is extracted some universal understanding, perhaps. But maybe before dwelling too much onto what Nursi says, and we can kind of try to make sense of what he says, we can take a look at the verse itself here. I have it on. I hope that's zoomed in enough, but let me. Yeah, okay, that's better. So here in this translation, I'll read it from Sahih International. All praise is due to Allah, God, creator of the heavens and the earth, who made the angels messengers having wings, 2 or 3 or 4. He increases in creation what he wills. Indeed, Allah is over all things competent or capable. Or here it said, I think, powerful, for God is powerful over all things. Yeah, powerful. So, I mean, I'm eager to hear your initial reactions to this verse. I guess something of what my initial reaction would be is I guess just like, I mean, first the verse tells me that God is the creator or the originator of everything that exists, right? And it also ends with God is powerful over all things. But in between here, we have this sentence or this phrasing about angels as messengers having wings 2 or 3 or 4. And I mean, I have some thoughts on it, but I see a hand raised, so why not? Inaba, you can go ahead if you'd like.
Okay. Assalamu alaikum. So just my initial, it wasn't my initial reaction, but it was like the reaction to my reaction was that why should I take 2, 3, or 4, like literally, if I've just been told that the originator who is capable over everything is only making, like, that is the one that should be speaking to me right now, and to take this message like this originator, the one who's capable over everything, simply wants to tell me that there's a messenger that has 2, 3, or 4, but that's it, like no more, only 2 or 3 or 4 wings. So it becomes laughable how taking this verse literally, like, why do I need to know? Why would my creator want to communicate that literal message to me? And if he's capable over everything, why not 1,000 wings? And other points in the Quran, like it's clear that numbers are used sort of metaphorically or to convey a message of quantity or many or endless or limitless possibilities. But to think that, like, I need that these specific numbers, maybe they're carrying specific meaning, but to think that it's just like to interpret this literally at 2, 3, or 4 seems very strange to me, and it doesn't feel like guidance. Like, I don't know what to do with that here and now,
Jazakallah khair. Thank you. Yeah, I think those are excellent points, and in some ways summarizes parts of my reaction in much more eloquent sense. So thank you. But yeah, like that's another point I hadn't necessarily focused on, which is that I am being told about this all-powerful creator, and then seemingly being shared certain like minute facts, quantifiable facts. And there seems to be that sort of, if you will, juxtaposition or just the arrangement of this verse is a little puzzling. So I'm I share that, at least in reaction. And I suppose, the question that had come to my mind, as you also shared, was that, so what? I mean, what's at stake here? If they have 3 or 4 or 2, I don't feel like I interact with any sort of entity with wings. Like, it sounds almost like a part of, I don't know, Harry Potter's Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them. Sort of just like this sort of information about, if you will, mythical creatures. So I guess then the task that I have to ask for myself, I thought, was, okay, how do I make this something that can offer guidance to me? And by saying how can I make that, how do I read it, or what meaning can I extract in that vein of things? I see that we have Brother Sohail's asking, what was the initial question? So my initial question was, we're looking at this verse in the text that we're reading. I guess initial reactions that people had to this verse, and we're just sharing that right now. So you're welcome to share that as well if you'd like. But okay, yeah. So there we go. Okay, Brother Suhail, go ahead.
Yeah, assalamu alaikum. So I heard the last comment about when, and as you mentioned, like what 2, 3, or 4. It's interesting. I think at least the Quran. I agree. The number itself is irrelevant, but I think that's the point. Is that it's showing that you can't, or I can't restrict the meaning of things to 1, nor to 2, nor to 3, nor to 4. In a sense, it's like 1, 2, 3, 4, on and on and on and on and on. I think that's what it's trying to imply, is that, if I take angels to be some sort of messenger, or the meaning behind things, conveying this sort of meaning behind words, behind the meaning behind a tree, the meaning behind a mountain, the meaning behind the environment, other animals, there's other creatures in general, the planets or the stars, then I can see things from multiple angles. I can extract meaning, for example, a virus. I can extract multiple interpretations, not just one. Why limit myself? But what do I see in it? Another perspective, and another perspective. It's endless perspectives that I can take, and everybody else can take for themselves, their own perspective, their own individual perspective, maybe their own individual experience with a certain event or a certain creature out there. Because for everything, there is an endless number of ways to see something, and because there are an innumerable number of people, there is an endless number of ways from everybody's own individual subjective perspective to understand something in the world. That's why he says, he increases, yazidu fil khalqi ma yasha, and he increases in creation whatever he wills. Not just literally in the sense that there's an unending abundance of creation, the number of creatures ad infinitum, every season, new ones are born and die, and then so on and so forth. It's never ending. It's endless, which speaks to the absoluteness of the creator, but so too the meaning behind those things is I can't grasp everything, and I can never say this is the entirety of something's meaning. Just like the Quran, nobody can grasp the entirety of its words. They can take individual perspectives from it and into their own personal life. Nor does it restrict anybody else's interpretation. But then the same verse sometimes, or the one word, may have in different points in somebody's life different meanings. And then he says, "Inna Allah ala kulli shay'in qadir." Indeed, surely God is most capable of everything. If it's only Him that can make this possible, no man, no being out there can say that can reproduce or produce endlessly this creation. Nothing can be held responsible for that, or can say take ownership over that, or has the power to do that. And then not only that, I think as more importantly is for there to be an endless amount of meaning. That's what I find interesting, is that that's really the miracle, is that there is an endless amount of creation, but behind just one thing, there is an endless amount of meaning. It's interesting. if I think about it that way. So that's what I took away. I mean, you know, he is the originator. He must be the originator of the heavens and the earth. But within the heavens and the earth are just, you know, I can look at one particular being, just an ant or a fly, and extract so much. A scientist can extract something from it, a biologist, a chemist, physicist, maybe a poet, maybe a historian, and then, you know, myself, not being none of those things, means something. I like them, I don't like them. You know, it's there's innumerable amount of ways I can see something. So that's what I took away from this verse, personally.
Jazakallah khair. Thank you very much. You know, I asked for initial reactions, but I get a very beautiful exegesis of the verse, which I more than welcome. But no, all jokes aside, yeah, very beautifully said. And I think as Sister Naba was also alluding, that sort of endlessness, right, in the quantity, being signified. And I guess this aspect, this part of the verse also attracts my attention in that, you know, he increases in creation whatever he wills, or he adds to creation. This idea that, you know, much of, just as Brother Sohail just explained, there's so much dynamism in creation, the sort of constant creation that's going around, right? I mean, I can just give a classic example since we're in fall, at least in the Northeast. All these amazing colors on the leaves that I see, and all the changing colors and changing tones and hues and everything that's going around me, in the weather, in just my environment, in the trees, in the leaves, in the sky. And also in my own life, right? Just every day is a little bit different, and there's always something that comes up or happens or preoccupies my mind. This sort of constant flux in creation. And with that sort of dynamism comes this endless doorway to meaning that can be delivered to me. And I guess with what's been said so far, you know, in one sense, I guess this verse is also defining what an angel is for me, which is a messenger within creation that comes to me in an endless amount, and also in some respects immediately, right? In terms of the speed with which it's delivered to me, if you will, for lack of better wording, such that, you know, everything then in creation, that the originator, the creator of the heavens and the earth, brings that meaning into everything that exists, such that everything that exists then is a messenger for me, is an angel for me, that delivers something meaningful to me. If I'm able to at least approach it and make myself a sort of conscious recipient of that meaning. And in that sense, you know, I guess now, like, the more I'm looking at this verse with the lovely comments that have been given so far, the more beautiful it really becomes to me about the truth that it holds, right? That at every single moment in my existence, there is something being created for me, and that in everything, in every situation, in every interaction, I am being delivered something meaningful. And that meaning has such depth and scope that it's boundless for me. So those are just some comments. Any other I don't know, questions or comments people might have on this verse here? Yeah, Brother Sohail.
You know, the other thing I took away is that the emphasis on all praise to God is for God, in that there is like a conscious will behind, because how else can, I mean, you know, if I try to explain meaning and attribute meaning to things themselves, like that's like it's attributing meaning, something that's fundamentally in a sense conscious, or has some sort of conscious will behind it, to dead, lifeless things, makes no sense. So I can't give praise or praise things themselves. That's impossible. Like, what am I praising? I'm praising something that's deaf, dumb, and blind. It has no will in and of itself. It didn't originate anything, couldn't originate itself, let alone the heavens and the earth. So in that sense, when I do read something, so to speak, I have to be conscious of the fact that where is my praise directed to? Where is my hamd directed to? To things themselves or to him? Because he's the only one that can have power over everything.
Right, thank you. And I guess as you were speaking, this came to mind that in some ways, this verse also offers a sort of formula on how to form a dialogue with creation, right? So today I looked at the pretty leaves, and you know, first I have to realize perhaps that the leaves themselves don't hold that beauty, that intricacy in color, that depth in how they change their tones and shades, and that in that relationship with the leaves, I'm being delivered something meaningful, and I see the constancy in creation that's also going on, right? So I see the angels, I see the increase in creation, and then I have to say, like, the only thing that I can say really is all praise to God, right? All praise to the one who is creating this, the one who is making this meaningful for me, and also creating this deep, immediate relationship that I have with it that fills me with a certain type of joy or wonder or curiosity. And I guess, you know, I also conclude then in some ways that, like, what source can be the one to be able to do this, right? God, surely God is the most all-powerful. Because it ends on that, and that's kind of interesting as well, I think. That invocation of power or competency or capability that's being made here. Brother Birkan, please go ahead.
Selamun alaikum. Jazakallah khairan. Like, I've been reading the verse from the beginning again and again, and I realized that, you know, I was kind of confined, like limited with what is in the middle. Angels with wings, 2, 3, and 4 pairs, and was kind of, you know, only think what is at the beginning and at the end. Then I realized that this part is also so important, which is also mentioned in the text as well. So the verse is beginning with praise to the praise be to God. So when the English is awkward, it's really hard to read, sorry. All praise is for Allah, all praise to Allah. Alhamdulillah, right? And then it says, Alhamdulillah, Fatir Samawati wal Ard. So whatever you see in the heaven and earth, or in any aspects of the creation, wherever you look, you will see a hamd, a praise, crude translation, going to Allah, or wherever you look, it will remind you that there is a reason for being grateful to Allah. You will see it. You will see this. There's a reason, and also like it's more detailed. There's a need. This need is sustained, and there's this feeling of thankfulness, feeling of gratefulness, gratitude, and praise, and it's leading you to Allah. As if everywhere you look, it's like a teleportation point for you to go to the presence of Allah. Since you are moderator to talk about this fantastic, the movies, we can also take it as teleportation. So you look somewhere and you are directly moved to, or teleported to the presence of Allah. Alhamdulillah, Fatir al-Samawati wal-Ard. And then it talks about how He, and only He, increasing in creation. This is also important. It's not in beings, but in creation. Halki, right? Fil halki. So what is being created? So again, when you look at the creation, when you look at the universe, you will realize that it is being created. And He increases whatever He wishes. As He wills, or whatever He wills, He increases. But the rest is like infertile, let's say. If something is not what he wills, you will not see any increase there. So for instance, when you try to take the universe as in the hands of blind forces, not as a creation, not something that leads you to the praise of Allah, if you take it that way, which is not what He wills, then you will not see any increase there. You will find yourself in the darkness, deserted place. It will not lead you anywhere. Your understanding or your pleasure or your the peace in your heart will not increase. It will even decrease. You will find yourself in a position that you hate everything, that everything is meaningless, that you are just a speck of dust in the vast universe and doesn't have any special purpose, any special point, place, or anything. You will not see any increase. But if it is something that He wills, that then you will find increase there. And when you see that things are being increasing, that multiplied, unfolding in front of you, a new meaning and then new meaning and new purpose, another purpose, one satisfaction, another satisfaction, and so on and so forth. Again, you will see His will there. You will realize that it's not you that is who is unfolding all these events or all these meanings, all these purposes, all these satisfactions, successes. That it is Him. He wills. The choice is His. So everything in creation takes you to Him. And as these things take you to Him, things become increasing. And in between, Ayah inserts these messengers as Suhail beautifully explained, all my, connections with the reality, all these different types of connections with the reality. And he resembles these messengers to creatures with the wings, just like flies. And one thing, strikes my attention with flies or birds or anything, as also explained in text, they do not stay one place. They always move. Like you wouldn't see things with wing in a real sense, but sitting somewhere, not moving, they will always move, fly from one place to another place and then another place, especially the ones with multiple wings, let's say. I'm not sure if it is true biologically, so I haven't studied it, but I have this impression, I might be wrong, this wouldn't change the meaning. It's just, another, let's say, aesthetic perspective. Again, it might be wrong. But as the wings, the number of wings increases, the creatures moves maybe more, like a tiny insect with multiple wings, not staying from one place to another. And it reminds me that all these things that unfolds in front of me, increasing all the time, and it doesn't stay in one place. My mind, for instance, when I think about the creation, as the creation leads me to the praise of Allah, and my mind doesn't stay somewhere. It moves from one place to another place, then another place, as if being, what is the verb? The drag, like forced to move from one place to another place. A creature, maybe, metaphorically speaking, carrying my mind from one place to another place. Or opening one page and then another page and then another page in front of my eyes. All this multiplicity, and beautifully described as messengers with multiple wings, multiple connections with the reality, multiple, the dimensions of one thing, or multiple places that I travel. So it's so beautiful. As you start thinking about the hamd and how everything in creation leads you to the hamd of Allah, the hamd for Allah. I'm not sure the right translation. Anyway, things becomes, I guess, clearer, and this imagery put in front of us becomes even more beautiful. Jazakallah khairan.
Thank you very much for that beautiful comment. And as you were speaking, I was thinking a bit more about this word wings, right? And as you said, in one respect, I can think of it as a means, something that will take me from one place to another place, from one point to another point. In my case, perhaps, from a state of heedlessness to a state of being conscious, a state of darkness to a state of light, but also that, wings as something that elevates me, that frees me, right? Maybe, growing up, I always had like these dreams of having wings and flying, right? That seems to be sort of this wish that sometimes humans have. Wings as a sense of freedom, breakage from bondage. And in that case, I'm thinking about the ways in which this meaning that creation delivers to me not only elevates me, but also frees me and gives me a sense of complete security in my absolute source of existence, in the one that is delivering me from the sort of meaninglessness, void that I find myself in, right? And so those are just some other thoughts that came as I was listening. But thank you so much, everyone, for participating so far. I think it really makes the discussion much more engaging for me and beneficial for me. So thank you. Any other comments before I go back to the text? Okay. So maybe let's try and to read this together again, and see what we can take from it, given what we've been discussing the last 40 minutes. So the author says, in this surah, the Quran says, by adorning the heavens and the earth in this way, and displaying the works of his perfection, their all-glorious Creator causes innumerable spectators to extol and praise him. He decks them out with uncountable bounties, so that the heavens and the earth praise and extol unendingly the most merciful Creator through the tongues of all the bounties and those who receive them. So this makes me think a little bit about our rumination so far on this, on the phrase that this verse begins with, right? Praise be to God. Praise be to God. And that not only is this my conclusion, the conclusion that I sort of inevitably find myself at upon interacting, reflecting, observing creation, but also I see that I'm perhaps not alone in that praise, right? That everything through its own tongue or just way of being praises its creator, its source, by virtue of the perfection that it displays. That's how I'm understanding it, at least. But if others have thoughts, they can chime in, of course. Yeah, Brother Birkan.
Jazakallah khairan. Sorry. Just to introduce maybe a little bit controversy, so that others will have reasons to participate and disagree, maybe. So when I try to read this verse in a simpler way, not without trying to find the right metaphor, let's say, that the verse is talking about certain creatures, which are called angels, with wings, 2, 3, or 4 pairs. Creatures with multiple wings. So I don't know how the first recipient of the revelation, this specific revelation, this specific ayah, interpreted this verse. That would be their, I guess, challenge, for sure. I mean, whether the word angel at that time mean something similar to what we understand. And when I say what we understand, I mean, the popular understanding that these spiritual, interesting creatures, whether they understand the same thing or not from the word malakut, or malak, let's say, or not, But even when I take it from, this superficial perspective and say that, okay, there are these mystical creatures with wings. Even now, I really enjoy, to be honest. Not because, it's so exciting, so interesting. It's like, watching a movie. That's maybe true. But it also gives this sense of mystery, not in a bad way, but the sense of appreciation, maybe celebration to the creation. And I think we are the children of this age. Our generation needs this, because for centuries we've been taught, we've been given a view of the universe which is so ordinary, so I don't know how to say, but with no excitement. It's so dry, so meaningless, so empty. In a literal sense, this is what we've been taught. Like the universe, the majority of the existence is just empty space with atoms floating around, and other than atoms, there's nothing. But this verse is now telling me that, and similar verses, telling me that the universe you think is empty, the universe that you think empty, is full of creatures that you cannot even imagine. But you will understand if you study. You will find out whatever they are if you study. Just leave this infertile understanding of empty space. There is no such thing. It is filled by these creatures, and very interesting creatures, it says. So again, even when I take from a superficial perspective, a verse telling me that the universe is more than what you've been taught. And I'm telling this because that's something that you can verify. Otherwise, I wouldn't be talking to you. I'm not trying to just introduce some mystery in your life that you cannot solve. It's rather a call for more exciting life. I enjoy it, even without metaphors. So it becomes a guidance for me. Alhamdulillah. Jazakallah khair.
Thank you, Brother Birkan. Sister Naba, you can just go ahead.
Assalamu alaikum. So for me to respond, because we wanted to see where we're all at with that, with this new idea that Brother Birkan brought up, it just doesn't work for me anymore. And I feel that the reason why I cannot get excited about mystical creatures is when I discovered that what I had been taking as ordinary my entire life was actually extraordinary. And then I realized that I had been robbed in one sense, in a major sense, of appreciating what is already here and already speaking and already mysterious and exciting. It is exciting that we exist. as we are and exactly as we are experiencing it. And it doesn't mean that I don't, through that, I actually get to a better or a more genuine confirmation that there can be other possibilities as well. But I couldn't start with the mystery and the mysticism to get me there. I needed to first see that this existence is coming to me as a veil, as a messenger, and that it's telling me about someone that is really, really amazing, and he's speaking to me. And then this also solved many problems for me that happens when we become a bit too mystical, which is in my own spiritual journey has something I delved into, which is sometimes the mysticism leads us off track to what is the ultimate purpose, which is let's get to know whoever or whatever is putting this existence in front of us. And sometimes like the mysteriousness of mysticism can sometimes draw away from that, when it can become very informational. It can become like silly spirituality. It can become everything other than what's already innately here and given to me, and developing seeking seeking the satisfaction and the ease and receiving the message from like what is already here. So that it can be a distraction from that. It's not to say that a child, because definitely as a young girl, I loved to think about the angels, and maybe that is where I was, but at the same time, I also wanted meaning. And I realized how it never fully satisfied me nor guided me in the most important ways, until things became less literal, for sure, far more possibilities in terms of finding the meaning in metaphors, and also this major realization that the ordinary is in fact extraordinary, that I don't need to see a mystical creature in order to be spiritually elevated. Thank you.
Thank you both for those really lovely comments and really insightful thoughts. I really enjoyed that. Anyone else want to contribute on this topic? Okay, so let's give precedence to those who haven't spoken yet. So let's do Brother Yusuf and then Brother Suhail. You can speak right after. Don't wait for me.
So to the end of the verse, it talks about yazidu fil khalqi ma yasha. So he adds to creation as he pleases. This part is increasing because, like in our understanding, it's not very modern understanding, I guess. It has been with humanity since the old ages, but since we are in modern ages with the materialism, so nothing comes into existence out of nothing. And if a thing exists, it does not go to non-existence. This is our perception of what existence is, and this is what we are taught with. So like if there are two apples, it's going to be two apples, or if it's two particles, two particles. But in here, as we come to the end of the verse, says like from the very beginning, it's talking about the creator of the heavens and the earth, and then starts talking about angels. So if talking about angels, why are you talking about the earth? Like, okay, it's okay to talk about heavens, but then the creator describes him as the creator of heavens and the earth, and then talks about angels, and then describes angels as the carriers of messages or messengers with wings, and then talks about those 2 or 3, 4 wings. And then this part, he adds to creation as he pleases. This part was a little bit puzzling to me. What's happening in here? Because this phrase is going to be used as leading to the conclusion that for God is powerful over all things. So as if this is implying that my materialistic worldview, in which things just happen, I mean, they were eternally existing, nothing comes into being, this sort of a worldview, this one is challenging that and saying that, are you sure about that? Is the creation only just a constant thing, or the creator, I mean, there's this constant increase or decrease within the creation, and it is within your reach, because this constant increase and decrease is something that happens in between heavens and the earth. It's not only something that is invisible to you as it's happening in the heavens, let's say, like in the ghaib, in the unseen for you. But no, as if it is saying that this is something that's possible to you to see. It is within your reach that you would observe creation increase taking place right in front of your eyes. And then you are going to use this to arrive to that conclusion, which is, yeah, for sure, it's happening. And therefore, God is powerful over all things. This is what it points to. And then seeing the first, I'm going to be able to conclude with the second. So do I see the first? And it looks like the creator is giving me a different perspective of the existence now, saying, because yazidu fil khalqi ma yasha, talking about attracting my attention to the creation. When I talk about creation, I used to think maybe only particles or the apples and oranges, but now it is talking about something more than that. It's maybe giving me a third dimension, saying that don't be so superficial, get some depth into that. And then there is a sama aspect, heavenly aspect of that creation. And in that aspect, once you get this depth into it, then you will see that things are multiplying in there. Like in the superficial two-dimensional perspective that you look at it, yeah, it has a height, it has a width, and that's all. It's not changing, maybe. I mean, to speak a little bit metaphorically again. But once you get the depth, as it now becomes, the thing that you're looking at now becomes a meaningful entity, because it's a messenger now, then you will start seeing multiple things from looking at the same thing. Let's simply take the example of Quran. Each verse of the Quran, in a sense, is if you think about Arabic script, it is the same words, like counted from beginning to end and end to beginning. It's a fixed number of letters, a fixed number of words. But if you start taking it as messengers and start seeing as it carries message from the creator, then you will see that the same verse, the same set of words will start showing you 1, 2, 3, 4 different meanings. Then you will start seeing that, oh, all those meanings are being created right now. I used to think that it was simply a dead text. Now it's becoming a live thing through which I am experiencing the creator at work. Like each new meaning that I get from Surah Al-Fatiha, which I keep reciting every day, but as new and new windows open to me through the very same words, it is actually confirming these verses, he is the one who made the angels messengers with wings, 2, 3, 4 parts, wings. And if I ask the question, well, how about that my idea of matter being eternal and nothing is coming into existence out of nothing, and things that exist do not go into non-existence, what happened to that? A new meaning is being created for me. So as if it's challenging that aspect, and this experience itself, like understanding new meanings, new dimensions through what was apparently the same thing. Because the same angel having 1, 2, 3, 4, whatever wings means there's something that you think you know, and countable, 1. But then you realize that 1 multiplies. You thought you knew it, but now you start seeing that, no, actually, now it has 3 wings. Now it has 4 wings. And the word wing in here can also mean aspect. And this is how also the author interpreted as it is. So Jannah, like wing, and also aspect. So this is something that I experience, this multiplication of creation. Multiple things from one thing being created is happening right in front of my eyes. And what does that mean? That creator is capable of doing anything. Because to me, this was unimaginable within the laws of quote unquote nature that I know of. This was the bottleneck of power. If the creator is not bounded by that limitation, then he is beyond any limitation. So he is powerful over all things.
Thank you, Brother Yusuf, for that. Brother Suhail, do you want to just jump in? Okay. All right. Well, if anyone else wants to speak, they can go right in. Thank you for those valuable comments. So I realize that we have a few additional people who might have joined in the last several minutes. So we are discussing this verse right here and trying to understand it for ourselves. Okay. I feel like we went from like 3 hands up to to no one, but okay, thank you so far. Maybe then we can continue, I was about to say, but Brother Birkan, please go ahead.
This is more like a question to Yusuf. From what he said, should I understand that he is suggesting that when we look at the dimension of the universe or the creation in which, I assume there are matters, people call as like the physical, let's say, the universe. When I look at it, so I will see it that the creation is bounded, but only when I look at the meaning aspect of it, then things will become unbounded or limitless. Is that what he suggests? Like these so-called the laws of the universe or laws of the natural laws. The preservation of X or Y. They hold in the physical world. So it is kind of bounded, but only when I look at the meaning aspect of the universe, then I will realize God is the all-powerful, and because the things will be increased there, and only there. Is that what is suggested? I'm, caricaturized on purpose so that there will be the discussion will be easier.
Brother Yusuf, you can respond to that if you're available. If not, Brother Suhail, please go ahead.
So I guess I'm supposed to start a fight. How dare you say this, Brother Birkan? Or I don't know if this was the expected response. So I think looking carefully, one can of course say that like quote unquote stable perspective, stability perspective of materialism is baseless because it takes existence for granted, as our very early discussions on causality and continuous creation would indicate, that the idea of preservation of energy, preservation of mass, whatever sort of a perspective, is baseless because it ignores asking the question of source of existence of things. But with that perspective being there, like being blind to that, not getting into searching for anything beyond the matter itself, it looks like people can stay in that dream. Because to tell you about my some personal experience in my journey, when I was initially thinking about this idea of continuous creation, and again reading Nursi, at some point in his text, he's talking about saying that, well, the creator creates in two ways. One is creation from nothing, and the other one is creation through building up, as if reusing already existing creation. I remember back in the day, I was thinking, well, yeah, we do observe that building up, like reusing material within the creation, but there is that creation out of nothing. I do not observe that is our concern back in the day, probably because I was so much caught up with the assumption or the doctrine of materialistic worldview that matter is just constant. So I remember struggling with that, and we were saying that, oh, maybe deep in the deep sea, the whatever animals are being fed by this perspective, this like still something that's beyond my reach because I don't go there. But even in that day, in that mindset, which was not able to comprehend the idea of continuous creation, if somebody was to bring up the topic of how about the thoughts that occur to you, how about the things that you're right now experiencing, you didn't know something 5 minutes ago, and now immediately out of nowhere you start thinking about something, or you say, oh, this came to my mind, for example, this is a new creation. This would have been a very first-hand and direct experience example of creation out of nothing to me. But apart from that, I think this Brother Birkan might be inviting us to, was I right thinking that the creation was constant? For sure I was wrong. But yes, somebody else can pick up. Zainab is speaking up.
I think Brother Suhail, you can continue.
Can you hear me? Or no?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay. Yeah, sorry, my connection dropped. I was responding to Birkan's earlier question about, at least what I heard was, like, what did people who first received the Quran or the early generations think about Malaika? And I guess it's not really necessarily my concern because, whatever they took away from it, whatever their perception was, it was for them. Just as the verse says, things are endless. So whatever their perception was, it was appropriate to them within their sort of context and time. And it doesn't detract or limit what my interpretation is of what angels are. Also, what I would say is, the word angel in Arabic, malaika, comes from the same word. It comes from the same root as it's mim, lam, and kaf, and from there you can get mulk and malakut. So like the dominion or kingdom, and the inward aspect of the kingdom, like the meaningful aspect. And to me, I think it's very interesting that angels are, or as I translate, because that's really English, but in Arabic, malaika has a very sort of deep meaning, just if you look at the root of the word. And I don't think it's far-fetched. I think it's, in fact, being true to the word itself of what I take angels to be messengers. Messengers as to who in which there's an outward form, but they convey the inward aspect of it. And like as Yusuf was saying, because angels are not, there's no material aspect to them. It's unbounded, in that sense. There's no like limitation to, materially speaking, to them per se, or something that I can't materially impose a limitation. That's why, imagining something is a bit kind of strange, because I'm imposing some sort of material perception of angels onto an immaterial being. It doesn't make sense in that regard. But by being unbounded, it sort of signifies the unbounded meaning that they convey. From the same word as Malik and Melik, like the king and the owner of this dominion, this kingdom, and what is within that kingdom, the dominion. So I find it interesting. It's all interrelated. But if you go back to the Arabic root of malaika, so I just wanted to add that.
Thank you for that. Okay, any other hands? All right, then okay, all right, Brother Vikram, please go ahead.
Maybe just to not to repeat, but to ask help, let's say, from Suhail, by clarifying the question. So my question, when I was, talking about the early generations, is like, when you say angel, to me, there's this inevitable image comes to my mind, which is, about these creatures. And I was asking whether such an image is purely a byproduct of, the popular, let's say, the TV culture of our century, or maybe previous centuries as well. Is it just a made up, things that we borrow from, let's say, other cultures? Or the word, the melek, also somehow has any, connotation for Arabs and for the language itself, and maybe the original generation, let's say, has any connotation of being somehow related to some creatures, other than the aspects that Suhail mentions. Because the aspects that Suhail mentions, that, I can say, yes, that makes perfect sense. I just wonder that the other part, which is about some creatures, is it a made up, the meaning of the word that we borrowed from other cultures, or the original Arabic word also has any such implications or not. That was the reason, I was asking about how they received or how they responded to the revelation.
Brother Sohail, go ahead.
I don't know if there's another connotation to the Arabic word. However, I don't think it's made up, because I think it's just human nature to want to to think of something materially. It's just within my nature. Like I need something for something that's abstract for me, in which I can't necessarily point to some object. I try to put an object or cloak it in an object that makes sense to me. For example, not even that, even God. Like, people have a hard time conceiving, because it's impossible, but hard time conceiving of this notion of God or his being. But by definition, he's inconceivable. That's what makes him God. But it's always the human tendency, because living in a material world, yes, the material world has meaning behind it, but then I'm trying to, it's interesting, I'm trying to, because I'm living in that material world, I'm trying to impose my material outlook onto the abstract nature of the material world. Even the inward meaning, I want to put a material aspect to it, because this is human nature. I live in the physical world, which to me it's one interesting thing. Even the prophetic, the hadith about that he saw Gabriel upon the horizon when he was, or not, I don't know if it's a hadith, but the statement of how when he first received revelation, whenever I heard that, I was thinking, what did he see? And my mind would wander, like, what does an angel look like? And I realized that is a sort of my own sort of bias, trying to impose something there, because I don't know exactly what he saw. Maybe what he saw probably wasn't really material per se, because if it were, then why can't I see it? Because he's not seeing something material, so to speak. And how do you describe something that's immaterial? Well, that's impossible, because how do you? At least within the nature of this world, I can't do it. I don't know how to describe. I need a material reference point to describe anything. Which is, in that sense, I guess why scholars debated, would human beings be able to see the face of God, or would they be able to see him, in the afterlife? And I think, that's an interesting question. The moon on I think a clear night or clear sky, because, which is interesting in that regard, because you can't actually see the sun. The moon doesn't actually reflect. It doesn't actually emit light. It reflects the sun's light. So what would I be seeing? Would I be seeing him per se, or would I be seeing his reflection, or the undying manifestation of his qualities in the afterlife? But those were just my kind of immediate thoughts to that question.
Jazakallah khair. Okay. So I'm going to continue with the text, unless others have any other comments. They should feel free to raise their hand and speak out. Okay, so inshallah, let me continue. After this, the verse points out that since the Creator has given men and the animals and birds members and wings with which to travel through the towns and lands of the earth, and since that all-glorious one has also given wings to the angels, the inhabitants of the realm of the heavens, in order to fly through the celestial palaces of the stars and lofty lands of the constellations. He is certainly powerful over all things. So it seems like here he's trying to make a comment, or he is making a comment in some way about the last part of the verse that says, "For God is powerful over all things." And I guess this is further explicated by the sentence that follows. He says, "The one who gives wings to a fly to fly from fruit to fruit, and wings to a sparrow to fly from tree to tree, is the one who gives wings to the angels to fly from Venus to Jupiter." But let me backtrack a little bit to this sentence again. Yeah, I mean, to be honest, I'm not quite sure how to approach this part of the text. If anyone wants to take a shot at it, please go ahead. Or anything that you might kind of gather from it. I think, so far the discussion on the verses has been very helpful for me, and hearing everyone's inputs and how they are understanding it or what they are taking from it. But again, it just seems to me, and I guess we have to contextualize the purpose with which Nursi is offering this verse and the purpose with which he is writing this, which is about the Quran's eloquence. But even with that, I am a little bit struggling in trying to take away a main point, if you will, from what he's saying. So let me just reread it again. After this, it points out that since the Creator has given men and the animals and birds members and wings with which to travel through the towns and lands of the earth, and since that all-glorious one has also given wings to the angels, the inhabitants of the realm of the heavens, in order to fly through the celestial palaces of the stars and lofty lands of the constellations, he is certainly powerful over all things. The one who gives wings to a fly to fly from fruit to fruit, and wings to a sparrow to fly from tree to tree, is the one who gives wings to the angels to fly from Venus to Jupiter. Furthermore, the angels are not restricted to particularity like the dwellers of the earth. They are not confined by a specific place. With the words 2, 3, or 4 pairs, it suggests that at one time they may be present on 4 or more stars. It gives details. Thus, through describing the arraying of the angels with wings, which is a particular event, it points to a universal, general workshop of divine power and its immensity, and verifies and establishes it with the summary, "For God is powerful over all things." I mean, regardless of how you want to approach this text, I guess the takeaway here is that for Nursi, the way in which this is conveyed allows, or as he says, points to a universal general workshop of divine power and its immensity. But let me pause there. So Brother Yusuf and then Brother Rikan, go ahead.
Okay, inshallah, if Zainab allows me to talk. So, as I was checking, right before this verse, Nursi was giving the example of ascension, like another verse that was about ascension of the messenger. Ascension of the messenger is such an extraordinary explanation or depiction in and of itself as well. Like the messenger is being described as getting on a sort of a horse, let's say, and that horse, one step the next step of that horse is to the horizon. And then there is a this journey of that messenger was all the way to the skies, to the heavens. And now in here, he is bringing up another example, which is now that another messenger is coming, but the other way around. Messengers like angels with wings. So I think there must be a purpose that he is giving these two, one after the other. And if we go to how Nursi talks about when explaining Prophet ﷺ's journey, in there he is using a similar argument as he gives here, because we think that we take it as normal and natural that the birds have wings or humans can fly. But in here, author is reminding us that it is with the creator's creation that birds have wings, flies have wings, humans have planes. So this is a creation. And then he is now extrapolating this idea, because what we think to be unimaginable, impossible, he is saying that, well, these were also the things that were unimaginable and impossible. It is his creation. Birds having wings is his creation. Flies having wings is his creation. And then if we are talking about now a messenger, now I am talking about Prophet Muhammad ﷺ's journey, because in there, he was going the other way around from the creation, like from earth to the heavens. So it was a journey with a tool, with a horse, flying like a horse, whatever. So as if he is saying that this, what you consider to be extraordinary, why shall it be extraordinary? Because the other ones, the things that the creator gives wings, flies and the birds and everything, it is his creation. This one is also his creation. So first, because our first reaction is, well, this is like science fiction, or this is not even science fiction, but it is like fantasy. He's saying that, well, you're already living in a fantasy world in which flies are being given wings to fly from one flower to another flower. So now this being said, we can, once we are done with this, our initial reaction of what are you talking about? Is this fantasy? As if he is turning the table and saying that, well, if you call it fantasy, yeah, you're living in a fantasy world. And come with me, and I'm going to show you how deep the rabbit hole goes, as if like challenging in this way. Matrix 4 is coming, by the way, in soon. So, but apart from that, once I overcome this, then once this puzzling disappears, then I can go with, as Suhail is suggesting, or others were suggesting since the beginning. So what does it mean to travel in the skies, like in the heavens? What does it mean to travel in there? Because as Nursi explains the journey of Prophet ﷺ, like Isra and Miraj, in there he talks about, again, going to the heavens, and then talks about being in multiple places. Because in there, there's a question which says, well, even with the planes, we can barely go to 10 kilometers high. What is it that you can go to the stars? What does that mean? Nursi's example in there is with your eyes, actually you can immediately go to, with your sight, actually not eyes, but with your sight, you can immediately go to Neptune. Or with your imagination, you can go to Pleiades right now. So this is another way of flight that you take. And this is being created for you right now. Don't you see that? So as if he is challenging our way of thinking and introducing these different ways of transportation as another ways of creation. Because these are the things we take for granted. We just think that, well, yeah, birds has wings. But it is saying that, no, that flight, that now when you close your eyes and you start thinking about the other side of the moon, which you have never seen, but with your imagination or with your thought, you are going to the other face of the moon right now. Is this something natural, or is this a creation that is happening? As if this verse is reminding us of this other aspect of creation, or actually every experience that I go through is a creation. And then the one who makes this is capable of creating everything.
Brother Virkan, please go ahead and then we'll conclude afterwards.
Brother Yusuf already mentioned the core of what I will say, just maybe to emphasize. So when we read such things, and as you were reading the text, like that, some creatures going from one planet to another with wings and so on, like it is easy to, judge from the change of the sound pattern of yours that there's something, bothers you, which also bothers me, and I'm sure it bothers many of us here, that when somebody talks about such creatures, and I'm using the creature not only, in the sense of, let's say, animals, but something that being created, we are not, peaceful with such a text, let's say, and we directly jump to a door, like run to a door in which we will find a better and always metaphorical explanation. And then we will say, the how everything in the creation is actually extraordinary. So to both, I believe, do not go together. So if, when Nursi, for instance, talks about some creatures flying from one planet to another planet, bothers me. But at the same time, I say, do you know what? Everything in creation is extraordinary. Everything in creation is, mysterious or whatever. I think I'm missing something. Because if in the creation, everything in the creation is unlike how it is taught to us, it's just a mystery, it's just a extraordinary, it's something that, I need to be surprised. If this is the case, then nothing can surprise me. If somebody tells me that there are some creatures flying from one planet to another planet, I would say, yeah, it is possible. It might be. I don't take it as, far-fetched. Because do you know what? I can look at one planet and I can see it. This is as extraordinary as what you are saying, what you are telling me. So I think without being open to these possibilities, I'm not suggesting that, we should be lost in such fantasy, like, the narrations, but without being open to the fact that, what I see as being normal is just, limited to what I see. That's it. There might be many other things to be discovered by me. And one of them, could be similar to what Nusi says. But it doesn't mean, of course, I'm denying the maybe more obvious and more, let's say, useful way of looking at things, which is most of the times metaphorical. I'm not denying this part. But if I am, let's say, lost in just the metaphors and raising my, the barrels every time I hear somebody takes something literally, and I say that doesn't make sense. Nothing can fly from one planet to another planet. I think there is something missing there.
And I'm still bounded by the science classes that I've been attending. So life is extraordinary, yes, and it's beyond the limits of my current understanding. Jazakallah.
Thank you very much. Alhamdulillah, I think we have a lot to think about and reflect over, inshallah. This was a very fruitful discussion for me, and hearing a lot of different voices, I think, added to that richness. So I am very grateful. Thank you. Inshallah, let's close here for this week, and we can continue next week. Subhanaka la ilma lana illa ma 'allamtana innaka antal alimul hakim. Wa akhiru da'wana walhamdulillahi rabbil alamin. Ameen.